Well, anti-checker, you're literally asking for it this time. Once again, you start dabbling into realms of science and are quickly dragged under the waves and down into the abyss by the undertow. So, let's hear your parameters of your little question here, and then we'll get into it.
Wonderful. Now, if you can just convince me of one thing, I will apologize and retract half of the red turds that I put on this film so far, because, well, let's be honest, probably about half of the red turds so far have been in some way linked to Picard's behavior. You ready? Here's all you gotta do. Tell me, how the does it make sense that after all this buildup, all this gritty, realistic PTSD trauma that Picard is suffering through, the fact that Picard has had these demons buried deep down and being in close quarters with the Borg is haunting him? Tell me, with all of that, why is it that Lily tells Picard that he broke his ships and now he's all better and never goes nuts again? From this moment to the end of the film, Picard is in full control of his anger. He even faces down the ultimate horror that he doesn't even know is on his ship yet, the Queen. But he miraculously is better from his complete mental breakdown. Why?
You kind of explain it a little bit yourself. He's having this great amount of stress and buildup and paranoia. And what he has, when Lily tells him that he broke all of his little ships, and part of the whole him lashing out and having this final physical fit where he actually breaks his stuff, it's a catharsis. You can also, I guess, maybe call it an epiphany, or in alcoholic terms, a moment of clarity. Because of her referencing Moby Dick, she appealed to his intellect and gave him a moment after his adrenaline had surged through him and a little bit of calm had restored, gave him something to reframe how he was looking at himself, and finally gave him a little distance where he can kind of float above and see what he's doing and regain that classic Picard stoicism and control. And that's why for the rest of the movie he's fine, because he was having a big, long, nervous breakdown. Now, I think part of the question that's not voiced there is why is he in this state in the first place? This is out of character for Picard. Because yes, in between the Best of Both Worlds and the events of Star Trek First Contact, there were other encounters with the Borg, and he did not hear voices in his head, and he did not start to freak out and get all super intense. There is an X factor that is being ignored. Something is present in First Contact that was not present in I, Borg or The Descent Part 1 and 2. The Borg Queen is here. The thing is she might not have actually been in any episodes. They're not actually retconning her into Best of Both Worlds for him to have memories of her. He was plugged into the collective. That's a mechanically induced hive mind telepathy. He was in communication with the Borg Queen, and in his mind's eye could have memories of her being there even though she physically wasn't there, because of the level of connectivity and communication going on between their brains during his assimilation process. And as soon as she's in Federation space, even though it's been years since he had been quote-unquote fixed and all the cybernetic parts taken out of him, suddenly he can start hearing the whispers again. And even before he actually knew consciously that she was there, there's this ratcheting intensity that normally is not seen in Picard. And I think it's very obvious that all of that is laid at the fact that the Queen is there. Did they stop and spell this out for everybody with a bunch of clunky exposition? No. And frankly, this movie, like any other Star Trek movie, or most sci-fi in general, already has too much clunky exposition. So whether it's an oversight or something they deliberately left out, I'm perfectly fine with that. The point is that Picard does not stay this crazed madman Ahab character the whole time. And the reason why his own crew doesn't confront him as much, I mean, at most Beverly and Worf kind of do when things are getting particularly tense over the whole, like, not wanting to blow the ship up. They're too close to the problem. They're used to Picard always having his shit together, and even when things seem their darkest, he manages to pull things out. So, in spite of all their doubts and misgivings, they just can't say no to the guy, kind of. Whereas Lily is a stranger. And as a stranger, she's able to see what's going on with different eyes. She doesn't have all these years of baggage with him clouding her perception of him. She's not loyal to him. She has no reason to be loyal to him. And whether it was luck that she happened on to calling him Ahab, because even if she never read the book, it's not like Moby Dick isn't well known in pop culture. I mean, movies are still around. They're watching movies in Star Trek Enterprise, so obviously they would have movies in the 21st century after the Third World War. So she'd be aware of Moby Dick. Hopefully the Gregory Peck one, and not the one with Chris Hemsworth. Anyway, so yeah, there you go. He's having a stimuli-induced, paranoid, PTSD type psychological breakdown. Not entirely generated by his own psychology, but he's triggered into it by the presence of the Borg Queen. He finally reaches a peak level of intensity where he actually really fully loses control of himself. He's not just acting too intense and making dumb decisions, but he just throws a fucking fit and starts smashing up his office. And then a stranger gets through to him by making him see himself in a story that he himself is very familiar with. It, like I said, it appeals to his intellect and his bibliophileness and all that kind of stuff. It was just the right thing at the right time to get through to him. And so, of course, he finally is able to get his zen back. And in a way, though, I don't really think he fully was himself again until he snapped the Borg Queen's spine and actually really removed her from the equation. Like I said, this movie is not about Picard having PTSD. It's about Picard finally having the catharsis of facing his demons. And it's not an easy journey, even for the strongest of willed amongst us. In fact, it might even be worse for those of us who make a point of trying to control ourselves all the time, especially around others, when the tension is just too much to handle, and you're still having to try to maintain in front of an audience kind of thing, especially when that audience is dependent on you so that they stay alive and victorious and save the future. So anyway, I guess your 163 red turds are about to go down to 70, 80 something, whatever. Hop to it.